All right, everyone. Well, thank you very much for hopping on here today. I really appreciate everyone's time. Real quick before we start, I just wanted to quickly introduce myself. My name is Tim Jefferies. I'm the Director of Sales here for the Enterprise Automation Business Unit of Foxit Software. Today's webinar, I'm really going to be spending some time kind of focusing in on how Foxit has helped a lot of organizations improve the efficiency of their remote workforces. And I think it's extremely relevant now, obviously, with what's going on in the world. Everyone is currently working remotely, if possible, and I just want to talk a little bit about how we've helped organizations prior to our current normal, and also how we've helped some organizations since our lockdowns have kind of started. So, without further ado, let's get started here. Before I get started, though, one quick thing: if there are any questions as I'm going here, please feel free to jot them down in the question section of the GoToWebinar. I will definitely have some time at the end of the presentation to go through those questions and try to address everything that is asked. Today's webinar is going to be about, I'd say, 30 minutes. I'm going to kind of just go through kind of how we've helped organizations in the past, a couple different specific use cases, talk a little bit about how we've helped some folks since everything that's gone on with COVID-19, and then also I'll go through just a live demonstration of one of our software solutions, PDF Compressor, which really is designed to help optimize documents and increase business efficiency and help to improve the efficiency of your remote workforce. All right, so let's get started here. So things have changed, right? This is a pretty broad statement, but some of the things that I'm going to focus in on today and what's changed that we've seen in the marketplace, even prior to what's happened with COVID-19, really is around three things. One, documents replacing paper. There's obviously a lot of benefits with going into a paperless office, right? There's no question about that, but there's some definite challenges there. The next is broad cloud adoption. And finally, everyone being remote. So the first one with documents replacing paper, right? This is very relevant now and certainly relevant before. There's a lot of benefits to the paperless office. There's no question about that. It's a great thing, right? But there are some certain things that you have to be aware of and some inefficiencies that can come up as a result of moving to a truly paperless environment. One is limited control over the document source, right? So without defined scanning practices and defined methodologies for creating your documents, right, there can be some inefficiencies that are exposed within a business, right? It can increase your exception costs, and specifically now with with what's happening with COVID-19 and people that were not working remotely before now working remotely, we found that there is even some more inefficiencies that are being exposed as a result of converting paper over to documents, right? Not a lot of controls over how documents are being scanned. Some people have desktop scanners at home. Others are using apps on their phone. Some people are just taking pictures, right? So it creates a lot of potential inefficiencies that we can help address, and I'll discuss that as we go through the presentation today. The next one is broad cloud adoption. So a lot of organizations are moving over to the cloud. They're taking their document repositories and moving them to the cloud. And in general, the storage cost there can be very inexpensive, right? But there are some definite unpredictable fees to accessing documents once they're up in the cloud, okay? They're called egress fees. There are not a lot of charges aside from just general storage to get your documents into the cloud, but once you're starting to download those documents and access them, you can definitely see some definite issues there and some costs that you might not have expected when originally outlining your cloud strategy. And there's also going to be some very slow migrations in getting data to the cloud. Large documents are certainly going to take more time. And a lot of organizations could be exposed to having two repositories running at the same time. And I'll talk a little bit about how we can help there. And then the last one, now more than ever, everyone is remote, right? A lot of organizations are set up for remote work. They have processes in place, they have systems in place for their workforce, but there's a lot now that have kind of been thrown into remote work that really were not expecting it. And there's some challenges with that, right? Internet bandwidth time can really vary, right? And you can have some serious problems with opening larger files and uploading files as well, just based on the size of them. So we'll talk a little bit about how we can help there. First, let's talk a little bit about remote work. So it's something that's been growing for quite some time. It's really been growing steadily since 2005. Companies of all types, whether they be private, public, nonprofit, startups, they continue to recognize the bottom line benefits of integrating remote work into their business strategies, right? It's a really highly sought after employee benefit. And as I mentioned earlier, many organizations already have the systems in place to implement remote work and do it very easily. So there's not a big change for a lot of organizations going into what's happened in the US and really globally starting in March, right? But for some organizations, there are some definite changes and they have to kind of go through a really quick learning process. But some general trends that we've seen in remote work, over the last 5 years, we've seen 44% growth, 91% growth in the last 10 years, and 159% growth over the past 12 years. So it's definitely something that is growing, and it's not something that I see really changing anytime soon. Now I want to just talk a little bit about how we've helped some organizations basically do a better job of working remotely and making their employees more efficient, just leveraging some of our solutions. So the first one I'm going to talk about is GE Power and Water. So they had a problem where they had some poor employee efficiencies around accessing their documents in their content repository, which was Documentum. They had some remote sites bandwidth issues that was pretty slow, accessing some larger documents. And there was a ton of time that was wasted for large critical documents to download. Some of these documents were taking anywhere from 4 to 5 minutes to actually download, which is really a significant amount of time if you take a step back and think about it. So their objective was to standardize their documents to a web-optimized searchable PDF file. The web optimization was key because it would allow them to basically download the first page of a document almost instantly, so they don't have to wait for a 50-page or a 100-page document to fully download. The other thing was to really compress documents just to improve overall access performance. So they decided to leverage our solution, integrated directly with Documentum, and they saw about a 45% file size reduction, and their file open times reduced from about 3 to 5 minutes to under 30 seconds, which was really a significant improvement for them. And the product that they utilized was a solution of ours called PDF Optimization for Documentum. Now, the next organization that I want to talk about was the FDA. So they had an issue where they were basically keeping all of their documents in the original file format. So this created a couple of different issues for them, and I'll walk through now. So the first one was they had to deal with some pretty high IT costs and overhead to maintain the different document viewers. So when they would do site audits and things like that, basically they would have some documents that would come back in JPEG form. They had some Word files, they had PDFs, they had TIFFs. It was really all over the board. And there were a lot of documents, right, in these different formats. So they had to maintain a number of different document viewers to be able to access these documents and view them. So they had an objective to standardize all of the documents to PDF to eliminate all of these different viewers and just have a single viewer for the PDF format. And they were able to do that with our solution to kind of convert everything over to optimized text searchable PDF and eliminate some of those costs and the overhead. Now, the next item that they had to deal with was sort of the risk and liability. The question being, can I find everything that I'm storing, and will my files open 10 years down the road, 20 years down the road? Right? Because a lot of these files, because they were maintained in their original file format, they were not text searchable. So you could not index them. They were a little bit difficult to identify. So they wanted to make their content searchable, and they wanted to store everything as a PDF-A or an archivable PDF, basically. And they were able to use our software to do just that. So all of their content searchable. It's a long-time archive, and it's completely ready for anything down the road. So the PDF-A standard is something that can be opened in perpetuity. 10 years, 20 years down the road, all of these documents can be accessed and easily found because they're all text searchable. Now, the last one that really kind of ties into today's discussion is really just some poor efficiency that they were dealing with. So they had slow document access for remote and mobile users. So they wanted to basically compress the documents down to speed up that access to the documents and also save a little bit of money on the storage of those documents. And the result was that they were able to see really a 55% file size reduction in speed, and they were able to speed up their access to those documents by about the same amount, about 55%. So it was a good success story in how we were able to help just improve just their efficiency, lower some costs, and eliminate a lot of their risk. Here are some other just quotes from some other of our customers that kind of have seen some of the benefits of document compression and how it's helped just general efficiency, right? So Chase Bank is one where employees became a lot more efficient because they were able to access their documents much faster and service customers at a faster rate. We talked about the FDA and how we were able to help them, and GE was also able to see their document download times, I should say, go from about 4 to 5 minutes all the way down to as low as 30 seconds. All right. So the question then is how small is small, right? We talked about the overall repositories at a couple of our customers and how they were able to be reduced. Now I just want to kind of talk a little bit about a few different examples of documents and how they are able to be compressed using our software. So the first example I have here, it's a black and white invoice, pretty standard invoice, nothing too crazy here, scanned in at probably about, I'd say, 200 DPI. It was originally a TIFF image, and it was about 141 kilobytes in size. And after running through PDF Compressor, we were able to get that file down to a much smaller size, about 34 kilobytes. So it was about 76% smaller. And you can see here in this snippet that we zoomed in, and you can really see that there's no additional image degradation to that image. So everything is now text searchable and a lot smaller than what they were dealing with originally. Another example here is a color invoice, right? Similar to the black and white, just it was scanned to color, so it's a little bit larger. The TIFF image originally was about 526 kilobytes, but a pretty clean, crisp image. And after running through our software, we were able to get it down to about 39 kilobytes, which is 93% smaller. So a very significant reduction. And as you can see, you can zoom in here, you might see some changes in a couple of the letters here around UPS, but really not a lot of significant image degradation. So this invoice can now be saved, and it's a lot easier to open, making it a much more efficient document. And then the last one here is a magazine clipping. You can see here it's just a fairly large JPEG. It was about 7 megabytes to start off. You can see when you zoom in, even on the original image, there's a little bit of blur on this shirt here. Right. And our software was able to reduce the size of this quite significantly. So the compressed PDF that we were able to create from the original JPEG that was about 7 megabytes was about 60 kilobytes. So it's about 99% smaller. And as you zoom in, there's really not a lot of change here on the document. So, you know, our compression ratios can be really quite significant depending on the profile of the original image. Right? Black and white images, you might see a little bit less compression, but on color images, you're going to see very significant compression while really maintaining the quality of that image. Okay. So I want to just go back a little bit to the remote worker productivity problem, right? So a lot of times poor connectivity is really underestimated, right? And if you really think about it, just over the course of a year, depending on how many people are working remotely, and also depending on their bandwidth, right? Upwards of thousands of hours can be lost just waiting for documents to open. And I can certainly walk you through this for your own business and for your customer's business and provide you with some general calculations on how this works out by looking at the total number of employees that are opening documents, the amount of time that they have to wait for those documents. And so you can kind of get a better understanding of how much improvement opportunity is really out there for your remote workforce. Right? And businesses, as a result of this, they can be impacted in a lot of different ways, right? So you can see poor customer satisfaction, SLAs being missed, potential customer loss and revenue loss, and also an increase in labor costs to increase the number of headcount to be able to work through with documents. Where we really feel that if you can just, lower the size of the documents, you can really help to improve the processes. Using a Foxit software, you can see really 50% faster document access, and it will really help to reduce your download times through the advanced document compression, speed up the open times through web optimization, or as we sometimes refer to it as linearization, and also just speed up the content access by making files fully text searchable. Okay. And as we started off just talking about some of the organizations that we've helped helped out really prior to everything that's going on today with COVID-19. There's also some more recent use cases that I would like to just kind of touch on briefly, right? So one, since our current normal started in about mid-March, I would say, we've helped these organizations that did not really have a large remote workforce to begin with implement some efficiencies that are required to help their business in the current state where everyone has to be working remotely. So one was a municipal water board based in Colorado. It was Pueblo, Colorado. They were not really able to access some large files remotely. It was just, they were too big. Some of the files could be upwards of a gigabyte in size. And we were able to help bring those files down for them and really help to improve their efficiency while they're working remotely now. Another one was a third-party logistics provider called Vanguard Logistics, and they've implemented a process for remotely scanning and being able to better access documents, just leveraging our technology. And then the last example was a city of Bremen in Germany. It's a municipality that really needed to make their paper archives digital just in light of the crisis and help to facilitate remote access. So these are just a few examples that we've seen, just very recently with everything that is going on. So another common misconception is, I'm paying for broadband at home, right? I certainly can access my documents. I can certainly deal with this. Why would I need to fix this? So it's a fair point, but a couple things to think about are there's probably more people at home a lot of times, right? I can say personally, there's a lot of times that I do work remotely. I travel quite a bit normally, and when I am working remotely at home, typically I'm the only one in the house. But now with e-learning taking place, I have two kids that are in elementary school. They're doing Zoom meetings with their teacher, and if you told me in January that they would be doing Zoom meetings, I probably would have laughed at you. But it's happening, and it's definitely something that affects just my general bandwidth here. It's also something that's obvious for a lot of other organizations, right? So companies like Netflix have actually been downgrading their video quality. I highlighted an article here that we could send out after today's webinar that talks a little bit about that, just to really improve just overall bandwidth. So our recommendation really is to try to solve the problem at its core, right? Leverage advanced document compression to speed up your file open times, web optimization, so you don't really have to worry about this becoming a problem for your remote workforce. Okay. All right. So we were able to go through just a couple of existing use cases, some newer use cases, talk a little bit about some examples. Now I just want to show you the software and go through just a quick 5-minute demonstration of how it can just sort of help to improve your specific, remote workforces. So give me 1 second here, and I'll just bring up our user interface. Okay. Okay. All right. So this is the user interface for one of our solutions called PDF Compressor. It's a very simple, clean user interface. The software is really designed to run jobs, and those jobs can be batches where we're basically looking at a specific folder, processing all the documents that are in that folder, compressing them, OCRing them, just making them a better document, and then placing them in a separate output location. I set up a demonstration job up here for today's demo, just calling it Foxit Demo. It's just residing on my desktop, right? So I have a couple folders here, an input and an output location, and I'll walk you through just how to set that up, some of the different settings that you can use to better process your own documents, and then we'll talk a little bit about just the general results here. So once you've created a job, if you wanted to add a new job, you can just click up here on the software, add a new job, and you can get started with it from there. But once you've added that job, as I have here, you can just double click on it, and you can see all the properties of the actual job right here. So I'll start off with my input location. As I said, I'm just looking at a directory that's sitting on my my desktop here. I don't have any subfolders, but if you wanted to check off on this box, if you did, basically it will traverse all of the subfolders and the subs underneath that to be able to process everything that's in those folders for you. For the purpose of the demo, I'm going to manually start this, but the majority of our customers do not do this. What they will do is they'll set up a job, they check off on this box here, and that job is designed to then run automatically. So it'll look in this folder every 1 second, 30 seconds, minute, whatever you want to do. And basically anytime a document hits that folder, it'll automatically process it, compress it, OCR it, and place it in a separate output location. Okay. We can process a number of different image types. I've checked off on a couple of them here, TIFFs, JPEGs, things like that. Of course, PDFs. And we can also do some born digital conversion, Word, Excel, and some emails over to PDFs. Next, I'll just kind of talk a little bit about the output location. So I've decided for this, I'm going to place the output in a separate directory. You can also place it right next to your input file if you need to. You can rename outputs with a template, and there's a number of different templates that you can use here. The output format I've selected for this is just a standard PDF, but as I mentioned in the use case of the FDA, we do have all the variants of PDF-A available if that is something that you need or that your customers might need. We can also have different conversion options for emails, how you want to handle attachments on emails, and things like that. On the image processing side, we have settings designed for the image profile. So if you have black and white images, you can set up unique settings for those. Color and grayscale images, you can have different settings. You also have the ability here to invert color and do some cropping. Color inversion is not overly used. It's something that you might see with old microfiche conversions, really flipping black to white, sometimes used in the medical space for MRIs or X-rays, things like that. On the OCR side, I've checked off to apply OCR. We can OCR over 120 different languages. I've selected the OCR analysis mode of balanced. I'd say about 95% of our customers use this analysis mode. It's really quite good from a standpoint of both accurate OCR as well as processing speed. If you're dealing with very crisp, clean documents, you might want to try fast as your processing mode. So things that are scanned in at a higher DPI, I would recommend fast. On the other side, though, if you're dealing with really degraded images, something that was crumpled up in someone's back pocket, faxed a couple times, and then scanned in at a low DPI, you might want to try most accurate. We can do some deskewing and auto detection of the page orientation here, which is a nice feature. So if someone scans in a 10-page document and 3 of the pages are upside down, we'll flip those 3 pages right side up to just be conforming with the remainder of the document. And we can also output a couple of different file formats as well too from the OCR data. So for example, if you have a table in an image and you want to get that into an Excel file, you can check off on this box here and you'll create that Excel file. All right. We can also just do some barcode detection and action those barcodes if necessary. On the compression side, we have a couple different profiles depending on the types of images that you're processing. You can also use this sliding scale that we have here. So if you want a lower quality image and possibly higher compression, you can scale it down this way. And on the opposite side, if you want a higher quality image with maybe a little bit less compression, you can scale it this way. But over the years and a lot of the testing that we've done, we've found that the default setting here of quality 6 really does a good job of finding that balance between compressing the document as much as possible while also maintaining as much image fidelity of the document. Okay. We can also do some data embedding on documents as well. So if you wanted to add headers, footers, bait stamps to documents, we can help out with that, as well as watermarks. On the post-processing side, you can select what to do with your original documents. I'm going to keep my input file for the purpose of the demonstration, but the majority of our customers will delete their inputs after processing them. And then over here on just some general settings, you can schedule your jobs if you'd like. So if the software is running on a machine that is not dedicated to this alone, you can set it up to run in off hours. And then also we have the ability to define job priorities. So if there are groups within the organization that have tighter SLAs or need documents to be turned around faster, you can give them a higher priority versus other departments within an organization. Okay. So before I start processing the documents, I just want to show you very quickly just a couple documents that I have here. I have about 26 files, some PDF files, some JPEGs, TIFF images, really kind of across the board, some larger files, some smaller files, and then I'm going to put those into a separate output location over here. Right. So let's kick off the processing. while that's running, you can kind of see here my screen is lighting up a little bit with just what's happening with the files. So I have an 8-core machine, so it means that I can process 8 documents concurrently. The software does leverage multi-threading, so it will allow for basically processing multiple documents at a time in a single batch or a single job. If you were to install the software on a quad-core machine, it would mean you'd be able to process 4 documents concurrently. So it's just one thing to take into consideration. So as this is finishing up, we'll take a look at the files once we're done here. It's just finishing up this one final file, and that is now done. So you can see here with the 26 files that we started off with, as I highlight the files, they were just under 32 megabytes. The new files over here are all PDFs. They're all fully text searchable now, and they dropped in size to about 7 megabytes. So pretty significant compression that you can see here. I'll take a look at just some of the files just to kind of give you a before and after snapshot. So the first one here, let's see, this is a JPEG. It was a magazine article started off at about, what was it here? About 6 megabytes. And then the new file that we've created here is a pretty clean file. It is fully text searchable. It's 50 kilobytes in size, so really quite significant compression. Control A on my keyboard, you can see I'll highlight all the text that is now text searchable. You can also search within the file for any key phrases in here. So I see CEO popping out at me here. I can search on that and we'll highlight wherever CEO is found within the document. Okay, let's take a look at a couple other files. Let's see here. So this one is a simple black and white image. It started off at 20 kilobytes, so not a lot of room for compression here, but we were able to get the new file down to about 15 kilobytes and also just make it a fully text searchable file. So it's a much more user-friendly, optimized file, even though there wasn't a great deal of room for compression on that file. All right. Okay, so now let's go back over here and we'll finish up our presentation, and then we can take a couple questions that have come in throughout the webinar. Okay, so I talked a little bit about some of the organizations that we've helped since our current crisis. A couple other things that we're helping out with, we're really offering some expanded trial capabilities for the remainder of this quarter through June 30th, just to assist with new remote workforces. We feel that there is definitely an opportunity for us to help, and we think that this is something that we can do to just kind of help people through this difficult time, see how we can just show them how our advanced document compression can help to really improve some of their efficiencies. Also providing just some additional support to organizations that are testing our solutions and helping to consult on best practices for implementing. Right. And to kind of recap, I just want to just go over just some of the high points here. Our advanced document compression is really some of the best in the industry. We do a great job OCRing documents, and it is really a great software solution that I highly recommend. It allows you to really convert and compress documents to improve your transfer and open rate by about 50%, reduce the size of documents by sometimes 50% or more. You can shrink files for emailing, which really helps out. It can speed up your migration projects and really just kind of help to lower the overall total cost of ownership of cloud implementations. It's just a few other things that I wanted to touch on. All right. All right, so that concludes our presentation today and the demonstration.